We're at a critical time right now. What I want you to understand, if you don't take anything back from this presentation but the next slide, I want you to really let that sink in. Modern anti-Semitism did not happen in a vacuum. You must know what you bring to the table. When you walk into a conversation with a Jewish friend, when you engage in conversation with your Jewish family members, co-workers, schoolmates, you bring this with you. I call it the Christian baggage. You bring a couple of large suitcases, you put them down on the ground, and in those suitcases are the Crusades, the Inquisition, the pogroms, the Holocaust, Luther's writings, the Black Plague. I can do more, but that's just one illustration of what you bring with you. You cannot get rid of it. You cannot ignore it. You cannot rewrite history. You have to know what's in that suitcase. This morning I want to unpack a little bit what's in that suitcase so you're aware of what you bring with you, and when you talk to your Jewish friend about Yeshua, you know why they are so gospel resistant, because of what you bring to your meeting with that person. You can't avoid that. So next best thing is to know about it and to know what's inside. Okay? We have seen a morphing of anti-Semitism over the centuries. A classical anti-Semitism and modern anti-Semitism. Classical anti-Semitism you can divide it into theological anti-Judaism at the early stage, early Christianity, and then it became racial anti-Semitism. So that's from the biblical account to the time of the Holocaust. You can divide. Many people have divided Jewish history in before the Holocaust and after the Holocaust. Books have been written that way. So it's a good way to divide it. Modern anti-Semitism, a lot of people today speak of the new anti-Semitism. I started doing this in 1999. I am now, for the last 3 years, started speaking of end times anti-Semitism, thus the new book, because I think we are even in a new chapter right now. New anti-Semitism and end times anti-Semitism is post-Holocaust to today. So let's go through history a little bit, because I want to show you some examples. Theological anti-Judaism paved the way for racial anti-Semitism. At the beginning, it was not, we hate the Jews, it's a race that needs to be destroyed. It was not it was just a theological difference between the Christians and the Jews. But there was an approach to the Bible that was a not literal approach. It was an exegetical deviation of some of the early church fathers, and that was a catalyst to starting the chasm, the us and them, between the Christians and the Jews. And many of the church fathers, I don't have them all on the screen, I just put some of those who were very virulent against the Jewish people, wrote things against the Jews. Now, I want to show you what happens. I want to use one example, what happens when you take a slight deviation from context, okay? And I put here a deviation of 1 degree, like I live in Seattle, so New York to Seattle on a plane, a deviation of 1 degree on the map, and you end up 50 miles away from Seattle when you land. So that's exactly what the church did. The church exegetical deviation took many far away from biblical truth, leading to diatribes and eventually death of millions unnecessarily. Context is everything. In his monumental 4th century work, the Vulgate, Jerome, one of the church fathers, translated the Bible in Latin. He mistakenly translated the word Quran from the Hebrew keren, that can mean either ray of light or horn, and he translated it into horn. Next thing you know, instead of having Moses with rays of light when he received the law on top of the mountain, you have Moses in 1505, commissioned by Michelangelo, commissioned by the Pope to do a statue of Moses, and we have this, Moses with horns. Most people don't even notice that he has horns. Moses has horns there. They don't belong. Well, the problem is, it was a misreading of the scripture, and I'll let you read this when you get the notes because I have a lot to cover, but I put a lot of scripture in there for your reference. Exodus 34 talks about the skin of his face shining because of his speaking with God. In 2 different places, I have the scripture listed there. But the horns on Moses' face, they stuck. Then you get this. A wall sculpture, wood bas-relief of Moses with horns, and they don't even look like those little horns. They look like evil horns, okay? If we really know what evil horns look like, because it's more like Hollywood evil horns, okay? But then, look. So you get this. Then you get this guy. This guy would be funny if it was not so tragic, because I think he looks more like the lion on Wizard of Oz. But it's still a statue of Eastern Europe, statue of Moses with horns. And then you end with this. That's not Moses, but that's the Jew with the horns. And then you get Ariel Sharon with horns. And then you get cartoons in the Middle East depicting the Jewish people in not a very, very nice light. Okay? So that's a deviation from one word. Over 1,500 years, we get to this. Unbelievable.